On June 8, 2012, Iowans gathered in Des Moines East High School for a U.S. Senate hearing about how to prevent bullying in our schools. Presentations were made by young people, educators, community leaders, policymakers, and experts. Proceedings were heard by Senator Tom Harkin. Here are some highlights of the day's testimony.
All children deserve equitable access to quality public schools where they can learn and thrive. Yet every day, countless students are denied this opportunity because they don't feel safe. While the rate of serious, violent crime among youth has actually gone down a little bit, there's another statistic that's going up, and that's the percentage of young people who have been bullied at school. Approximately 20% of kids from all walks of life experience bullying. It is alarming that 85% of students with disabilities have been bullied. Even higher than that, 94% of students with Asperger's syndrome have been bullied. Lesbian, bisexual, gay, and transgender youth are also at heightened risk. According to data released just yesterday by the Human Rights Campaign, LGBT youth are more than 2 times more likely to be verbally harassed and called names at school, physically assaulted, kicked or shoved, or excluded by their peers because they are, quote, different. While the top concerns of non-LGBT students in school, when they're polled, you ask them what their top concerns are, they say, well, grades, college, career. LGBT students, when they're polled, they say they're most concerned about their non-accepting families and bullying at school. Being the victim of bullying has adverse effects on mental health and concentration, and of course, academic outcomes. And as Iowans, we have been reminded recently that bullying can lead to suicide in some cases. Our hearts go out to the family of Ken Weischen of Primgar, who took his own life earlier this spring after coming out as gay and being bullied for it. It's also tragic that many students are unable to access their education because bullying makes it unbearable for them to go to school. I've heard from all too many young people who were compelled to drop out of school because of the hostile climate and lack of protections at schools. We will hear from one such student today who's very brave to come forward and talk about her experiences. Some were able to complete their education only through GED classes, so they were denied the high school experience that their peers were able to enjoy. So we all need to be a part of the solution. We need to teach children to respect differences. As adults, we have to set the examples by modeling civility and empathy for others. Research shows that efforts to foster positive conditions for learning result in higher academic outcomes for students. The wrong approach, and quite frankly, the irresponsible approach, is to just brush it off by saying it's a rite of passage or it's just kids being kids. So today we'll hear from young people, educators, community leaders, policymakers, experts who have stepped forward as part of the solutions. Some of our witnesses are making a difference in communities here in Iowa. We'll hear from the Distinguished Assistant Secretary of Education for Civil Rights. We'll also hear about new findings and recommendations from the Government Accountability Office on how the federal government can make things better. Most important, however, I draw your attention to the testimony of the 3 students that we have had here and hear firsthand from their accounts. That is the most important.
The boy pointed at people and said, "Dumb, dumber, and dumbest." When he said dumbest, he pointed at me. I was 7 years old the first time I was bullied. I was so shocked and stunned that I didn't know how to react or what to do. All I really knew was that what he had said was wrong and that his words stung like vinegar on a cut. It was in 2nd grade that I first realized I was different. I felt like I was in and from a different world from my classmates. Sometimes they would talk about me as if I wasn't there, condescendingly explaining my behavior to each other, saying, "She always does that." It was the kids who were in the popular crowd who picked on me the most. They were a small group of girls and boys, kids who seemed to be well liked by the teachers. Later, I looked back at these early experiences and knew that I was so confused about everything. Who I was, why I behaved the way I did, why I didn't understand how to make friends. I was perceived by others to be the shy kid. I was not diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, an autism spectrum disorder, until I was 12, which is a very late diagnosis. I wanted to tell my parents that I was getting bullied, but I did not know how to explain what was happening. Thankfully, when I was in 3rd grade, the bullies were in the other class. We had 2 classrooms for each grade. Unfortunately, the bullying got worse when I was in 4th grade. A new girl moved into my neighborhood. I'll call her Girl A. And she behaved well in front of my parents and other adults. But when their backs were turned, she had the personality of a vicious junkyard dog. It took me many years to realize that she chose me because I was vulnerable. I didn't have many friends, and it was difficult for me to make friends. The rules of friendships were completely foreign to me. One time, she and another student picked on me when the teacher was out of the room. They called me Queen of the Dorks and put an imaginary crown on my head. I was very hurt by their actions. Our teacher once said, after discovering that some of the students were arguing, that we should all get along because we are all friends. I knew even then that wasn't going to fix anything. In 2nd, 4th, and 5th grade, my peers verbally abused me almost every day about the clothes I wore. I didn't dress like they did. I didn't wear the latest cool clothes. I was not a cool kid. I didn't pay attention to celebrities in the news or watch the same TV shows the other kids watched. In my childhood, I just wanted to be a happy kid who felt free to be myself. I wanted to be a kid, but my classmates were not okay with that. They knew I wasn't cool, and they used every opportunity they could find to make me feel like I would never be good enough to be their friends. They were relentless. They made fun of the speech I wrote at the end of the year for the anti-drug program DARE. My Halloween costume wasn't cool. When I gave a presentation in social studies, they laughed at me and asked me questions in a mocking tone of voice. I always hated PE because I wasn't very coordinated and my peers were impatient and unkind toward me. I always felt like I was never enough. The only reason I ever felt comfortable going to school was when I was being bullied was that I got along very well with my teachers. In 5th grade, my teacher gave me a hug every day after school was over. I needed it. 5th grade was the worst of all. There was another girl, Girl B, who chose me as her target. The whole school year, she seemed to enjoy treating me like garbage. She pulled my hair, kicked me in line, and made fun of my clothes whenever she could. One time, my mom came to school, and after she left, Girl B made fun of my mom wearing a scarf on her head. It was wintertime. I was furious, but because I didn't know how to handle the situation, I kept my rage inside. Recess is hell for most students on the autism spectrum because it is about socialization, an area people on the spectrum struggle with most often. I usually spent most of my time during recess talking with either the recess monitor, who was also one of the lunch ladies, or one of my few friends. I felt comfortable talking with the monitor because she was nice to me, unlike my peers. One day on the playground, I was standing around, just talking with someone, when Girl B suddenly came up to me and told me to come with her. I told her I didn't want to. She started to ask me why, and she wouldn't stop it. After not being satisfied with my answers, she grabbed me by the arm and gave it a snake bite, twisting my arm very hard with both her hands and causing severe pain. I found a teacher, and she sent Girl B to the principal's office. After my mom learned about the incident, she came to school to speak to the principal, who said that Girl B was having issues at home. Not much else was done. I am particularly concerned about students who are unable to communicate that they are being bullied. Before I was able to advocate for my disability, I had no idea how to let the adults around me know that I was being bullied. How can students with autism who have little or no verbal abilities inform responsible adults if they are being bullied? I wish that my elementary school teachers and administrators had done more to address bullying. I felt so alone. It doesn't matter who you are, what you look like, how you dress, what faith you believe, how you learn, whatever. No one should have to feel afraid to go to school. Bullying is not a rite of passage. It is so heartbreaking to me to think of young children and teens who have committed suicide because they were bullied so much they felt the only solution was to end their lives. Every student has the right to have a safe learning environment. School should be a place where students feel comfortable to be themselves. A school's #1 priority, above all else, should be safety. When students don't feel safe, how can they learn? Bullying will become less prevalent when teachers, school administrators, and parents are honest and open about what behavior is tolerated and what is not. Bullying will go away when schools, parents, and students work together so that kids understand that bullying will not be tolerated.
All right, thank you. I guess My experience with bullying really began in 8th grade. Through a process I won't describe, my classmates had learned that I was gay. And although recently I've been more popular in school, after I came out, I lost probably half my friends. And they bullied me relentlessly with slurs and threats and remarks that no one should ever have to have said to them or directed at them or seen directed at anyone else on top of that. I wasn't even free of the bullying when I left school. Even now, if I walk home from school, people will yell obscene things out car windows from me, so I have to take a different street home that isn't as busy. In October of last year, an anonymous Twitter account began spreading false rumors about various people in my high school. They cyberbullied me and other people, and I related to that so much. And while all of this was happening, I became more and more depressed. I couldn't get away from it. I was always concerned with what other people thought or what other people needed to think, and how can we make people think something else, or how can we distract myself from it, or anything except schoolwork. And those habits, as I was bullied in middle school, middle school is really a time when you should be building the habits to be able to concentrate on your schoolwork. And I've never quite been able to do that anymore. I didn't report the bullying because I didn't think the school administration or somebody could do anything for me. And we do have the Ulvaeus class meeting system in our school system at Linn-Mar as well. And then at one point, a friend suggested that I, quote unquote, pretend to be straight in order to stop the bullying, which I never understood how it was different. I don't look at the differences between people. I always see people as very much the same. And I can see similarities in people you'd never even think they were the same until you really looked. And so I never looked at myself as any different. I didn't understand what I needed to hide, what I needed to change, what needed to happen in order to make it stop. Although I knew that I thought I should change myself. And that is not how you stop bullying. That is not what gets it fixed. Because even if I were to bend to other people's expectations of myself, they would just bully someone else. Eventually, I came to a point in my life where I really just didn't want to be alive anymore. And I never felt that way again, which is good. I went from 8th grade into high school, and I joined my school's Gay Straight Alliance. And what she said about Gay Straight Alliances is 100% true. What Gay Straight Alliances can do in a school is so productive and so amazing. I used Twitter, as Senator Harkin said in my biography before, to counteract the bullying through an anonymous Twitter account called Linn-Mar Love. And really, it was weird because I could reach out to people because they didn't know who I was, and they could reach out to me, and there was no more social boundary there. Anyway. Earlier this year, I had the opportunity to visit Washington, D.C. to advocate for two important pieces of Safe Schools legislation. I am grateful to GLSEN, the Gay, Lesbian, and Straight Education Network, GLSEN, for giving me the opportunity to learn about advocacy and to meet with my senators and representative. For me, it was a truly life-changing experience, really. And I'm excited because GLSEN has invited me to become a student ambassador and to continue telling my story as a way to make a positive change, things like today. While in Washington, I learned about the Safe Schools Improvement Act, S-506, and the Student Non-Discrimination Act, S-555. These two bills will ensure that every school district has a comprehensive anti-bullying policy with effective protections for all students. While Iowa and 14 other states already have comprehensive anti-bullying laws, most states have only generic anti-bullying laws that are unable to provide protection for vulnerable students, as Senator Harkin stated before. Two of the lawmakers I have met with have been very supportive. Senator Harkin is a co-sponsor of the Safe Schools Improvement Act and the Student Non-Discrimination Act, and has been a leader in trying to make schools safer for all students, as we know. Representative Loebsack signed on the bill after I met with him and told my story. Lastly, no one should go through this, ever. There's a paragraph here on my testimony, and I'm going to skip it, but I just want to say, students are dying in their homes and in their schools. That's not okay. We're here because something needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you for having me here. Like you said before, my name's Liz Sutterquist, and I am technically a student at DMACC through their correspondence program, which a high school has to proctor my tests, and I do homework, I guess you could call it, and I will get my diploma. I'm still technically a student at Gilbert High School, but I rarely ever attend. I have no classes there. I'm there long enough to take my DMACC tests. The reason why I rarely step foot in Gilbert is because I slowly dropped my classes in order to remove myself from a school that was unsupportive and hostile to me because I myself identify as lesbian. At the beginning of the year, I had long hair and had tried to act straight because I knew it was a conservative school, and I did this to protect myself. I was living a double life. Early in the year, I had met a guy, and he wanted to help me with my algebra class because I was having problems with it and I was struggling. He had a crush on me and constantly was asking me to go on dates and wanted to actually be with me. I had made it clear I just wanted to be friends, and we decided to go to homecoming together as friends. Afterwards, he still continued to pursue me, and I continued to make it clear that I just wanted to be friends. He got mad at me, and there was one day that I had decided to confide in him and tell him that I was gay. And later on, that would be the wrong move to do. He got angrier as I kept saying that I did not want to be with him. He decided to out me at school, which in the LGBT community, you do not out somebody. It is wrong. You don't know the reasons why somebody is in the closet. I was scared about how people were going to react, but nobody had believed me at first. Later on, I had had window paint on my car to support the rugby team at ISU, and someone had taken their key and wrote the words and into my windows, leaving scratches. My car was vandalized, and I had also gotten a text from a friend saying all these things that everybody else was saying about me, including derogatory names and different slurs. I had told the principal, and I had tried showing him pictures of my car. I had tried showing them text messages, but he continued to say that he believed me and that I didn't need to show him the evidence. And me being a teenager, I didn't want to see that anymore. It was depressing me, so I did the wrong thing and I deleted them. Now that people knew that I was gay, I slowly started to be me. In February, I had attended an LGBT conference at Iowa State University known as Mumble Talk, or MBLGTACC. And afterwards, I decided to cut my hair and show the world who I really am and how I feel and express myself in a way that I felt was necessary. People really started to harass me, and I went to the principal numerous times. He would meet with me, but just brush off all of my concerns. I started to feel fear for my physical safety and worried about people starting even more rumors. To me, it felt like 600 people against one. I felt very small, and it was very overwhelming because so many people were up against me. I had some allies, but they were so scared to actually stand up for me that it didn't even help. When you're worried about your safety, it's hard going to school. It's difficult to concentrate. I'd get anti-gay texts on my phone. I'd hear slurs, and I'd be called names, and the person that had outed me to the school was kind of the ringleader of everything. This is not how I wanted to go to school. I wanted to feel safe, so I decided to pursue and make a Gay Straight Alliance, or a GSA. I wanted to educate my peers and faculty and stop the homophobia and hate. I began working with Iowa Pride Network. Unfortunately, the advisor that I wanted for the GSA kept trying to talk me out of it. He kept saying I would get bullied and harassed even more, and he told me that he was just concerned for my safety and for my well-being. But I wanted the support, and I was tired of hearing anti-gay remarks, and I wanted to change. I kept being told that the Gay Straight Alliance was a bad idea. At the time, I was dealing with teachers who wouldn't call on me in class or even involve me. Some of my teachers even felt it was okay to say "that's gay" when describing a dislike, which it's not right. Female teachers didn't feel comfortable around me and avoided me because I identified as lesbian. And most faculty wanted nothing to do with me. I finally felt so discouraged, I gave up on the GSA and my school. I developed severe anxiety, stomach issues, and depression. I didn't want to go to school, and I didn't want to have to go to faculty that didn't pay attention to me and no one handling the bullying problem. My mom had called the superintendent, and the superintendent said he would look into it, but nothing had ever changed. My principal had called my mom and would yell at her and say I was never in school, and my mom would simply explain it was because the school wasn't handling the bullying situation, or it was because I had such severe anxiety and stomach problems that I couldn't attend school anyway. And that's when I decided to enroll in DMACC to get away from the harassment and bullying and to get my diploma, because I wanted to find a way to get away from everything unless something severe would happen. And I would get into such a low depression that I could end up like the other tragic students and possibly commit suicide, and I didn't want that to happen. I was currently a junior, and I had enough credits to graduate this spring or this summer. And I wanted to go to college in the fall, but now I can't because I can only graduate once my class does next year in 2013. My life is now put on hold, and because I'm being held back, so is my financial aid for college, because the adult diploma is a gray area. The one bright spot I was looking forward to this spring was possibly going to prom with my girlfriend. I wanted to go to prom because this was technically my senior year now, and I wanted to have that high school and senior year experience. I was told I wasn't allowed because I was missing too much school, and I was only attending DMACC classes and I wasn't a full-time student, but at that time I still had some Gilbert classes. There was another student at my school who had missed school and was also attending classes mostly at Iowa State, but he was allowed to go. It was a double standard, and the principal said not only could I not go to prom, I would not be allowed to bring my girlfriend, but yet everybody else can bring their own date. My experience at Gilbert High School has been tough. It's very hellish at times. And I hope that through this testimony, schools will realize that not providing a safe and supportive environment does affect students and their ability to learn. Students should not have to worry about being judged for who they are and judge them on their actions, not on how they present their gender or sexual orientation like myself. You should be able to go to school and know that there is going to be teachers that support you, or at least put their opinions aside and treat you like a normal human being. School faculty needs ongoing training, not just training once a year, but actual ongoing training. People who want to become teachers also need classes as well to help them understand how to deal with bullying, not just with sexual orientation or gender identity, but also with disabilities and anything in between. Schools also need gay straight alliances. As Matt and Ms. Riley had said, they do help. It's, even if it is not just a gay person starting it, it's a great way to have a support group for that person that is getting bullied, whether they're gay, straight, or have a gender identity or not, and they can go there and have the support, almost like a family. And they can go and tell people what is going on and what's happening at school, or what's even going on at home, because some families don't always accept their child when they have a different gender identity than what they are, or their sexual orientation, or anything really. And a GSA does help. I know in my school a GSA would make a big difference, and I am still trying to fight to have a GSA at that school, even though I am not a part of that school, but I am still willing to help, because no kid should have to go through what I did. No one should have to live a double life, and no one should have to worry about being judged. And yes, people are going to judge you no matter what, but people need to understand that we're human and we come in all different shapes, sizes, colors, different mental states, different everything. And it's important that we embrace who we are, and we should not have to be afraid to embrace who we are. A GSA would also help the anti-gay remarks stop. They may not stop completely, but when you hear faculty saying, "That's so gay," or you even hear students calling another one a faggot or gay in general, it's hurtful, even if they themselves are not gay. To force that on someone is hurtful, and it can really damage someone. Senator Harkin, thank you for allowing me to speak today, and I hope that my story and some of my ideas help bring issues to light.
Thank you, Senator Harkin. It is my honor to be here today and talk a little bit about what we in the Department of Education are doing to help ensure that schools are safe for all students and free from bullying and harassment. I, too, have been heartbroken to learn about what far too many students experience in our schools. Suicides, torture, mental confinement that leads to depression and sadness, and particularly for our purposes, the inability to learn. If students do not feel safe, they simply cannot learn. When we as a society tolerate a culture in which children bully and harass each other, we fail to live up to the principles of fairness and equality upon which our schools and our country was founded. It is particularly true when bullying is based on personal characteristics such as race, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, religion, or disability. So we are working on this issue in a number of ways and have been for the last 3 years in particular. I know you are familiar, as are many in the audience, I'm sure, with the White House Conference on Bullying Prevention. We are actually having our 3rd annual summit coming soon, where we are bringing together from across the country educators and students and community groups to learn more about this issue and to help prevent it going forward. The president has explained that bullying is not something we have to accept. As parents, as students, as teachers, as members of the community, he said we can, all of us, take steps. Everyone needs to feel like they exist in a climate in which they belong. The way we are doing this in the department is, I'd like to talk about 3 things in particular. 1, ensuring resources and support and training and technical assistance for educators in order to help them both understand the issue and how to eradicate a culture in their schools that might give rise to bullying and harassment, to help the courageous leaders like Paul Gaussman, who I know we will hear from later today. Now, of course, there is no universal one-size-fits-all approach to fixing this. We recognize the pervasiveness of the problem. The data you cited is illustrative. We have also seen recent data that shows that over 3 million students believe that have also been physically assaulted behind bullying and harassment. It is not, in other words, just teasing. So we are stressing this first through ensuring that those with the greatest responsibility and that are in the position to best help change at the local level, local educators and local community members have some support. So we have distributed funds through the Safe and Supportive School grants to 11 states. That fund in Iowa has been put to some extraordinarily good use, and I know we will hear from Penny later on today, who will give us details. We are also moving forward on technical assistance, ensuring that everyone everywhere can come to us, ask us how to help, that there's a place to go for best practices on how to stop what's happening in our nation's schools. We have launched a website. You can visit that at stopbullying.gov. We've also produced a resource document, so analyzing all of the bullying laws across the country and gleaning best practices from states that are doing amazing things. Now, we still have a long way to go. There are, fortunately, 49 states today that have some kind of bullying law on the books, but no two share the same definition, right? We do not have a common definition yet for what bullying is, certainly not at the federal level. Now, it is also, though, about vigorously enforcing the nation's civil rights laws where they apply. Protections based on race, ethnicity, color, sex discrimination, and disability discrimination. We have seen, though we don't have jurisdiction over sexual orientation, that the civil rights laws, though, can help for precisely what I talked with you about a few minutes ago and what I learned from Ms. Hoover Walker. Those young children, if they are not bullied because of their sexual orientation, but because of gender stereotyping, then the civil rights laws can help. It was the first time the Department of Education ever addressed this issue under Title IX in this way. So we have launched a number of proactive investigations. We have received nearly 2,000 complaints just in the last 2 years alleging harassment across all the statutes in our jurisdiction. That is more than ever before, and in fact was a 34% increase just from last year alone. As we track the data this year, it looks like by the end of this fiscal year, we'll receive even more. We have launched proactive investigations to ensure that we suss out the systemic discrimination where it is happening, not waiting for citizens to file complaints with our office. And we are also due in no small part to your support and leadership, finally able to collect data across our nation's schools about incidents of bullying and harassment across the statutes in our jurisdiction and those students that were disciplined for. This was the first year we collected the data. Next year, we will have data across all schools in the country, despite the fact that schools are still struggling with even how to report these data or collecting it internally. We've seen about 85% of the nation's school children represented in our survey, and over 100,000 incidences of students subjected to harassment, over 160,000 instances of students disciplined for some kind of harassment. These are but some ways to help. We have a lot more to do in working with you and with communities across the country. We hope to see some real progress.